welcome back, fellow time travelers and comic book aficionados. That was a great bubble. I don't know about you, but I really enjoy summertime, the sun, being outside, enjoying some lemonade or milkshake, watermelon or barbecue, but also bubble gum. I remember back in the day in high school, or even before that, having a pack of gum like watermelon flavor, original bubble gum flavor, strawberry, and just enjoying chewing gum, walking with friends, and just reminiscing about that. Bubblegum has quite a few appearances in the comic book, either with advertisements or characters enjoying a good bubblegum. It's a part of American history that's just as unique as comic books. But before I begin the show and use some time token to travel back in time, I want to congratulate Captain Strangelife for his 500th episode just a week ago. Congratulations to the captain, a salute to one of the best in the community, and also an inspiration to me to start my channel, as well as many others. Captain Strangelife always has a great deal of knowledge and appreciation for comic books, the artists, the history, and it's just a wonderful reference to the comic book culture that we know. So a salute and congratulations on 500 episodes, Captain, and to many more. Thank you. Chewing gum, as seen here, dates back to the Mayan civilization, where they used chicle to help suppress hunger as well as quench thirst in between meals. The United States, later in the 1800s and around 1848, Blackjack was one of the earlier brands of chewing gum that we know of. And Blackjack was in small communities and was wrapped as chewing gum. But Fleer Gum Company in 1928 by Walter Dimer was one of the first to really gain traction and give us the pink soft gum that we know is an American staple. Walter Dimer enjoyed working with different recipes and even tried different flavors and sugars to perfect the gum technique, if you will. We also have heard of other companies like Wrigley Jr. and also Bazooka, which we're going to explore in this episode. But Walter Dimer kind of paved the way since 1928, mixing and brewing and working on the modern day bubblegum. So let me use my time machine here to go back to around 1948, where we start to see a little glimpse of gum in comic books. And this issue here, Magic Comics, issue number 102, features a similar depiction of what Walter Dimer was doing in his kitchen, trying to come up with a spectacular gum. And we have here the very recognizable Blondie in this David McKay publication. And we have him at the stovetop holding some corn syrup, as well as some of the other ingredients on the bottom there, including, as we can see, sorghum sap, sugar, cornstarch, and it even has a make-your-own bubble gum recipe book. So it sounds like a very sticky situation. You can see the smoke building up, a cute cover, a fun cover. Doesn't show the bubble gum quite in their round form, but we have Blondie tinkering away. And around the 1940s, Bazooka also had a beginning, even featuring a small comic wrapped in with the pack of bubble gum. And that was around 1948. We have the characters like Bazooka Joe with a signature eye patch, and those characters coming into play. So gum was something to be reckoned with. Even in World War II, soldiers and GIs would receive rations of chewing gum, as well as tobacco and other items. But gum was starting to be a little more mainstream than it was before in the early 1900s. This book right here has some great stories, of course, with Blondie by Chick Young, but also The Lone Ranger with some great artwork there. And these were taken from the newspapers and put into the comic book form, which was a lot of fun to give readers a chance to enjoy. Beautiful artwork. We even have here Popeye as part of the Thimble Theater is a feature. Eventually, Magic Comics and the rights and all were part of the King Syndicate even then, but then they changed the name from Magic Comics to others of their own titles under the King Syndicate license and publication. We also have the Secret Agent X9 right there, another story offering a little bit of detective and suspense thriller mixed with true crime, because the golden age was true crime, detective, scary stories, adventure, and of course Superman and the hero kind of at the dawn of that era. Neat advertisement in there for sports, some of the key players back in the day. But this is a neat compilation of different characters, and including Mandrake the Magician, who's also part of the King franchise. And just the artwork is so well done and polished. Not even looking at the story, you can just see how the artwork is very enticing to the viewer. Jan and I want to see Jan and Aloysius, another side story. But all these little stories, even the one on the back with the little acorn, are part of this reference to bubblegum. Magic Comics, issue 102, with Blondie on the cover. So let's travel out from 1948 to 1951 with Pep Comics. And Pep Comics featured some advertisements for Double Bubble chewing gum from the Philadelphia-based Fleer Gum Company. And Pep Comics is also known for giving Archie his debut before he had his own magazine and comic book. And always Pep invited us to the pages of the comic by the covers. It always featured a funny gag of one panel. And here we have Archie himself in class trying to get his letters together. And of course, he's always thinking of Betty and Veronica. A fun cover, issue number 88 of Pep Comics. And as we flip open the book, we see some of the advertisements that we know for Double Bubble right here. So right there's a comic, almost an advertisement geared toward kids, and you can read a little bit there. And the pack of gum was 1 cent. Just one piece of gum was 1 cent, and that was neat to see. There's also an in-house ad for all the other Archie comic books right there, featuring Susie. And we have also Archie, Pep comic, as Archie sits at the newsstand. So pretty neat to see. A lot of different stories, so it's not just Archie, it's Pep Comics, including a really nice Wilbur with this soda fountain. So a shout out to the captain, who's a big fan, as I am myself, of the soda fountain scene. You can see the soda jerks, as they're called. They're not jerks at all, but they man the soda fountain, including a jukebox. Yeah, a little jukebox is there too. That's the culture in 1951. So we're seeing here some more bubblegum ads that's pretty unique and fun, very American, if I may say so. So Double Bubble and Fleer had competition by the time of 1947. Topps Company, based in Brooklyn, New York, also created chewing gum based off of a recipe by the Soren brothers from the 30s, 1938. They purchased their gum rights, and then was born Topps Gum Company. And they also provided pink flavored chewing gum, like an original type flavor, and the red, white, and blue packaging under the title Bazooka. And here we have Bazooka celebrating their 75th anniversary just around the time of this video, with 75 years in their patriotic colors of red and blue and white. They gave us another type of gum, and even the individual labels had Bazooka written on it. and also the mascot, Bazooka Joe. The bazooka, often referred to as a weapon to take out tanks, but it was also a musical instrument as well, was the name chosen to give a little bit of a homage to the troops of World War II that served years before. So Topps Trading Company and Fleer also had baseball cards and gum, and then comics. All of that goes together. There's a video that I made with some of the non-sports trading card featuring movies and TV shows in the playlist if you're interested in more about Topps. But they produce gum under the name Bazooka. And if you need a little break from watching, you can always rest your head back on this pillow here. This is a Bazooka pillow for a 5-cent piece of gum. You can see the 5 cents embroidered on here. A neat little plush to have front and back that features Bazooka. So you can usually buy many pieces of Bazooka in a bucket, each coming with their own particular comics and gum. And Bazooka was more popular for me in my neck of the woods that I saw a lot of, as well as Double Bubble. I also have a stick of gum from around the 80s that also features Bazooka Joe. And it was kind of a spin-off of the Hathaway shirt company that featured a person with an eye patch. So it was kind of a swipe that Bazooka used from the Hathaway t-shirt company to create Bazooka Joe right there. And then the back of it, you could see the comic kind of wrapped around. So this is intact. This gum is intact right there. As the camera focuses, you can start maybe to see some of the letterings and words of it. Bazooka, like Fleer, was also based out of Pennsylvania, so one could say that Pennsylvania is the chewing gum capital. And good to see this. Kind of looks like William Wrigley spearmint gum, but that's a different story. And when you're unwrapping a piece of gum like this, you have to be careful not to rip the comic. By peeling away around it, it reveals a tucked away folded comic right here. And they were usually a little quirky and cheesy, but they did have their own headline, kind of like that you would find in the newspaper, and the funny gags within. This one is about his friend watching the coats, and Bazooka Joe says you don't have to watch the coats, you don't, because they'll be fine. And then he's saying that one of the coats is missing, so that's why he's watching. So some of them don't make all that sense, just one comic per gum piece, and there are over 1,500 comics that were produced. They're no longer produced, they discontinued in 2012. There was a 75-year anniversary run that featured the more popular ones from the 1,500 plus that were made, and this is just one of them. You'll even find on eBay and some of the collectible sites groupings of these types of comics, and some are even going for a pretty penny, more than what I would use in my time machine. But Bazooka gave us a little bit of humor and fun in addition to a good chomping in a bubble. If the Bazooka pillow wasn't cool enough, or comic book featuring bubblegum ads wasn't as neat as ever, how about miniature comic book featuring sticks of gum inside? And this is not from Double Bubble, Fleer, or Wrigley, but rather on the back, Amaral Products, based in Naperville, Illinois. They made miniature comic books in the late 70s. And there's only a handful, about 4 to 5, that they circulated. And they came with a miniature story inside. So of the three, we can look at Captain America right here. It's a pretty neat cover. Much like you would see, they have the rights from Marvel to create this mini comic book. And the back even has the barcode, and they're called bubblefunnies. If you're ever hunting in the wild or looking for some of these, you can check them out. I wouldn't eat the gum because they're brittle and more than 40 years old and can make you sick. But the comic book is worth to keep. You can even see how the detail is on this book. It's no more than 2.5 inches in height, about 1.5 inches in width. And you can even see Captain America, there's a deviant red skull right there. And a lot of color and pop for such a little bitty book, including some of those wax and kabooms and Captain America trying to figure things out. So it's neat to have a pocket-sized book. Here in the back is a cardstock where the bubble was encased. You could see some of the stain from the bubble that was used in there. And the back advertises Bubble Funnies. And it also says with bubblegum inside. So that's pretty neat, because another one also features Archie, and it's just a nice reproduction of the cover there. I would say it's even original art, but don't quote me on that. And you see here roller skating and our famous protagonist Archie, Veronica, having a swinging good time, trying to teach Archie what to do in this case right there. And it's quite a few panels. It's actually about 7 pages almost of different pictures inside, including Archie getting thrown out of the roller skating rink. And the last is a kind of a cardstock there, just to keep the gum that was there. We also have the Amazing Spider-Man in a nice yellow cover. It looks like a real comic book you would pick off the spinner rack, but it's that big, like it's holding up to my head here. And even the introduction, just that quintessential Peter Parker, kind of a little introduction to those new to the comic book, gives a little quick backstory of the hero, of who Spider-Man is. It doesn't really say. I would have to research if it was by John Romita Sr. or if he had a hand in it, or Sal Buscema at the time. But we have Doc Ock, of course, one of the main nemesis of Spider-Man, featured in this little mini book. And we find Peter going back to school after all that action. So these 3 books are just a few of them. I do have one book that I did not open that I'm going to open with you guys. You can see the seal right there, and it's going to be the Hulk. So let's open this bad boy up and kind of see how the gum looks and see what it's like to open up one of these 40 plus years later. I'm going to remove the plastic seal right there and be a little careful. And the gum is in the back. It's quite a big piece of gum. I try to get my fingers around it so it doesn't spill forward. So pretty wide piece of gum. That's a lot to chew on, and it's very brittle. And some of the trading cards that I used to collect in the 80s of the Ninja Turtles or Batman, they used to feature a stick of gum and also 5 cards and 2 sticker cards. So it was always neat to see these gums there, and so many companies competing to put their own cards and their own gum into these wax wrapper packs. So probably see those at the flea markets and some of the collectible stores. But let's take a look at the story here. And we have the Hulk smashing away. That's a nice, it almost looks like an herb trimpy cover, but we have the Green Man himself, one of the more famous antagonists right there, the leader. Looks like we have a little fold in the book, and it was mint. Okay, I guess the way they packaged it. And a lot of green fury going on right off the bat. And there's the Hulk again. So a neat little book with the Bubble Funnies. How about that, folks? So what did you think of those mini comics? Aren't they pretty cool? But this is going to be even cooler. A Gumball Dispenser right here, featuring a double bubble right on the front there. This is a commemorative bank / Gumball vending machine that was released in 2001. and it actually operates, and I have some of the time tokens that I typically use to travel in time, but we're going to use them to get some gum. So we put them in the slots right there, just kind of pushing in there, keeping our hand underneath, and we get some gum. How about that? A 2-for-1 special. How about that? That's kind of my luck once in high school, and I got two Pepsis in one. So we have a couple here, and they're lined up and they drop down. So it's a pretty neat device. I like the 5 cent. It gives it a little bit of that vintage charm, the red color, red, white, and blue. And we have the double bubble. Since they no longer make it, I actually put Bazooka gum in there, and it's just the same. I get the best of both worlds. So pretty neat. Just wanted to show you this little neat double bubble vending machine. And by the late 70s and early 80s, around 1981, 1982, the craze shifted to video games, arcades, Pac-Man, Galaga, Zaxxon, Donkey Kong, and Topps, that we know from the baseball card company and chewing gum, created these packs of gum in this shape of an arcade cabinet. So the gum culture was adapting to what was popular at the time. And just look at the neatness of that right there. You can see the Donkey Kong and Pauline, as she was called. You have arcade right there. And pretty neat. So even the graphics was printed on the top there. So it's pretty neat to see some of that. And just enjoying the artwork. There was video games, and to what would be very popular characters today. So pretty neat to see arcades. They also had different ones for different games. You can find them on the internet, none of which have the gum in it, but pretty neat. And as we wrap up, we have some other bubblegum companies coming into the mix, including the Fruit Stripe gum featuring the zebra, and these were in comic books everywhere. Another one that was with Marvel Comics with the Hulk. It was a neat cover. This is issue 321 right here, and if we open it up, we see Bonkers. In the late 70s and early 80s, Bonkers was kind of another snack chewing gum company, different flavors, including a wristwatch that looks a lot like the Transformers or GoBots back in the day. And they were getting in on the gum gravy train right there. The mini-series that we know from Cloak and Dagger, this is issue number 1, also featured some neat gum ads right here. The bubblegum. Bubblegum is a big one. A lot of advertisements for bubblegum coming out as well. So that's a pretty neat one. As well as amazing artwork and stories by Bill Mantlo and Wrigley and Artie. So just neat to see that. So we got bubblegum ads inside here. Another one on the back cover of the Sensational Spider-Man and Marvel Tales book right here. On the back we have Brock's, which is based in Chicago, Illinois. They too had some comics and bubblegum and lollipop ads. So you can see that the correlation between comics and gum, and even this large double issue with Spider-Man. I love this cover, by the way. And this is issue number 60 from November of 1981. Just have this as a placeholder. We see bubblegum again, teaching us a magic trick. There's also a advertisement for Bubba Hubba that came out in 1979, and it was by William Wrigley Jr. So now the Wrigley chewing gum company that's always had double mint, big red, and juicy fruit was producing a more softer gum to create a bigger bubble and joining in on the bubblegum popping scene. Hubba Bubba. You can see with a cowboy and the large stance that he has that you can make an even bigger bubble. We also have rainbow bubblegum. This is another ad right there for Rainbow. By then, we're getting into the 80s, and this is from a Spectacular, Peter Parker Spectacular comic book. And this is from 1987, where we see the Rainbow bubblegum. So I want to thank everyone for joining me as we took a different angle today with looking at bubblegum, as we have Magic Comics right here and these mini comics, and just the craze that was bubblegum from 1928, 1947, with Topps coming into this scene later on in 1979 with the Wrigley Spearmint coming up with their own Hubba Bubba, Bubblicious, Bubble Tape in the 90s. We all have some reminiscing and recollection of bubblegum in some way. And I think we have to thank comic books for showing us that, as well as cartoons, as we really enjoyed that. So loving that. Gonna have another stick of gum right now, and thank you for joining me, and be well.